August 7, 1944. 1,430 hours. Somewhere west of Mortain, Normandy. Dust hangs thick in the late summer air, stirred by the growl of Sherman tanks and the clatter of half-tracks pushing east along a rutted farm lane. A knocked-out American deuce-and-a-half lies tilted in the ditch, tires shredded by 88mm fire, canvas flapping like a torn flag. Smoke still curls from the engine block. The driver and his assistant are long gone, either dead in the hedgerow or sprinting for friendly lines. Nearby, a squad of Wehrmacht infantrymen from the 116th Panzer Division creeps forward, rifles leveled, Stahlhelms low. They are hungry. Bone-deep hungry. Obergefreiter Karl-Heinrich Müller, 23, former baker from Hamburg, signals halt. His stomach has been knotted for days. Last hot meal was ersatz coffee and watery soup 3 nights ago. The squad fans out. One man pries open the truck's tailgate with a bayonet. Crates spill, wooden boxes stamped U.S. Army Quartermaster Corps. Müller climbs in first. The scent hits him, rich, meaty, almost sweet. Not the sour rot of old bread or the chemical tang of substitute margarine. Real food. He tears into a cardboard carton. Inside, compact tins gleam. He pries one open with his combat knife, key attached, clever American touch. Chopped ham and eggs slide out, pink and yellow, flecked with pepper. Cold, but the smell alone makes his mouth flood. He scoops a handful, eats standing. The taste explodes, salty pork, creamy eggs, nothing like the gristly horseflesh or turnip mush they've scraped from field kitchens. Another tin, pork and beans, thick with tomato sauce. Crackers wrapped in wax paper. A small pack of soluble coffee. Sugar cubes. And there, chocolate. A flat bar, dark, wrapped in foil. He breaks off a piece. It melts on his tongue, rich cocoa flooding senses starved for sweetness since 1942. The others join. Gefreiter Fritz Langer lights a lucky strike from the accessory pack, for cigarettes per ration, smooth Virginia tobacco, not the harsh Turkish blend or hand-rolled but scavenged from dead comrades. They pass a bar of Hershey's, marveling at the wrapper's clean printing, the promise of real milk chocolate. Someone finds instant coffee packets, real coffee, not the roasted acorn swill back home. They brew it in a helmet over a tiny heat tablet, the aroma cutting through gunpowder residue like a memory of peace. Müller chews slowly, almost reverent. Back in Hamburg, his mother rations bread at 200 grams a day, ersatz honey thin to nothing, meat a monthly luxury if the bombs don't interrupt deliveries. Civilians scrape by on 1,500 calories if lucky, often less. Turnips, cabbage, watery soup. Children with swollen bellies. Here, in a wrecked truck, ordinary American soldiers carried this every day. Ham. Chocolate. Cigarettes by the pack. Coffee that didn't taste like dirt. The squad eats in silence at first, then murmurs grow. How do they fight if they're this soft, one asks. But the question hangs unanswered. Because the food isn't soft. It's abundant. Secure. Proof of an enemy that doesn't worry about tomorrow's meal. Müller pockets a few bars, tucks cigarettes into his tunic. Guilt flickers, he's looting, but hunger overrides shame. They reload what they can carry, tins, crackers, candy. The rest they leave scattered, evidence of their brief feast. As they melt back into the bockage, Müller glances at the truck one last time. The contrast settles in his gut heavier than any ration. American GIs ate like kings while German families starved. And the front keeps moving west. Supplies stretch thinner. The realization creeps like cold through wool, this war isn't just about guns anymore. What happens when an entire army tastes the difference? Late August 1944. Dusk settles over the hedgerows near Falaise. The pocket is closing, Allied artillery rumbles like distant thunder, P-47 strafe anything that moves in daylight. A platoon from the 3rd Fallschirmjäger Division hunkers in a ruined orchard, foxholes dug among apple trees stripped bare by shells. Oberleutnant Heinrich Voss, once a schoolteacher in Leipzig, now 31 and hollow-eyed, watches his men. They haven't eaten properly in 10 days. Ersatz bread is gone. The last horse was butchered yesterday, stringy meat boiled into grey broth. Rations arrive sporadically, when they arrive at all. One of the paratroopers, Gefreiter Wilhelm Becker, returns from a patrol carrying a bulging rucksack. He drops it beside the slit trench with a metallic clank. Found it behind the American lines, he says, voice low. Truck burned out. nobody around. Voss nods permission. Becker pulls out treasures, for complete C-ration cartons, still sealed, labels bright against the mud. The men crowd closer, breath quickening. They open the first box like it's Christmas. Canned meat, spam, the label says, slides out firm and pink. Someone has AP-38 opener, the key turns smoothly. The meat is salty, fatty, spiced with something they can't name. They eat it straight from the tin, passing it hand to hand. Next comes the cheese spread, sharp cheddar in a foil pouch, spread on hard crackers that snap clean. Real butter flavor, not the rancid margarine of home. Then the chocolate, D-ration bars, dense and bittersweet. One man bites into his and closes his eyes. It's like Mutty used to make, he whispers. No one laughs. Coffee comes next. Instant powder in a small envelope. They heat water in a mess tin over a shielded flame tablet, no smoke to give them away. The aroma rises, rich and dark, cutting through the stink of cordite and wet earth. They sip from canteen cups, scalding their tongues, savoring. Real coffee. Not the roasted barley or chicory that passes for it in the rye. Sugar too, white cubes wrapped in paper. They drop them in, watch them dissolve. Someone finds the 4 cigarettes, Lucky Strikes, filterless, smooth draw. Matches included. They light up, inhale deeply. The first exhale is almost a sigh. Voss eats last, methodically. He opens a can of fruit cocktail, peaches, pears, grapes swimming in syrup. The sweetness hits like a memory. In Leipzig his wife would save sugar for the children's birthdays. Here it flows freely in a dented tin. He chews slowly, letting the juice run down his chin. Around him the men grow quiet. No boasting. No jokes about Amos eating like pigs. Just the soft sounds of chewing, the occasional clink of a spoon against metal. Then the talk begins, low and halting. My sister wrote last month, Becker says. They get 1 egg per week if they're lucky. Bread's half sawdust. Another man nods. In Berlin they're grinding horse bones into flour. Voss listens without speaking. He knows the figures, civilian rations down to 1,200 calories a day in many cities, less in the east. Children stunted, women gaunt. Yet every American infantryman carried this bounty into battle. Not officers. Not specialists. Ordinary riflemen. GIs who drove trucks, walked patrols, slept in foxholes like these, fed better than factory workers back home. The realization settles like lead. It isn't just food. It's proof. Proof of endless supply ships crossing the Atlantic unmolested. Proof of factories churning out tins by the million while German industry crumbles under bombs. Proof that the enemy doesn't ration hope. Voss pockets 2 chocolate bars for the march tomorrow. He tells himself it's for energy. Deep down he knows it's comfort. Night falls fully. The platoon prepares to pull back under cover of darkness. As they shoulder packs heavier with pilfered rations, one paratrooper mutters what they've all been thinking. If this is how the Amos eat, how long can we keep fighting? No one answers. But the question lingers, heavier than any pack. And farther east, in other foxholes, other squads are making the same discovery. Word spreads, quietly, dangerously, through the ranks. The cracks are forming. September 1944. Dawn breaks grey over the Siegfried Line near Aachen. Rain falls in cold sheets, turning foxholes into muddy sumps. A company of the 12th Volksgrenadier Division, mostly boys and old men scraped together from rear echelon units, holds a stretch of dragon's teeth and pillboxes. They've been here 2 weeks. No hot food since crossing the border. The field kitchen was hit by artillery. What arrives now is cold, sparse, and late. Lieutenant Eric Stahl, 26, former engineering student from Cologne, inspects his men's positions. Their eyes are sunken, cheeks hollow. Many cough wetly, pneumonia creeping in. During the night a patrol returned with spoils. Not weapons this time. A burlap sack bulging with American C-rations scavenged from an abandoned jeep abandoned after a failed counterattack. Stahl orders the haul distributed quietly, no need to advertise it to higher command. In the shelter of a half-collapsed bunker, the men gather in small groups. They work methodically, almost ritualistically. A younger fighter named Hans Weber opens a can of beef stew. The chunks are large, gravy thick, carrots and potatoes visible. He spoons it cold, no one dares light a fire. The taste is hearty, spiced with something beyond salt and pepper, real beef, Not the stringy substitute or canned mystery meat they've known for years. Another man finds the fruit bar, compressed dates, raisins, figures. Sweetness that doesn't come from saccharine. Someone passes around the powdered lemon drink. Mixed with rainwater it becomes something close to lemonade. They sip it slowly, letting the tartness cut through the constant metallic taste of fear. Cigarettes again. Chesterfield this time. The smoke is mild, aromatic. Men who haven't had a decent tobacco ration in months draw deeply, exhaling plumes into the damp air. One veteran, Feldwebel Otto Braun, 42 and missing 2 fingers from Stalingrad, holds up a pack of 4 and says quietly, "For cigarettes. Per meal. Every day." He doesn't need to add the rest. Back home his wife gets perhaps 10 cigarettes a week, if the ration card is honored. Children trade stubs for a crust of bread. The conversation stays hushed, fragmented. "My neighbor wrote from Munich," Weber says. "They're down to 1 potato per person a day. Turnips otherwise. The kids don't cry anymore, they just stare." Braun nods. "In Cologne they grind nutshells into the flour. My boys' letters stopped mentioning meat months ago." Stahl listens, saying nothing at first. He remembers his last leave in 43, queues for bread stretching around blocks, women fainting from hunger. Now he holds a chocolate bar. Tropical, coconut and chocolate blended. It melts too fast in his palm from nervous heat. He eats half, saves the rest. The sweetness feels like betrayal. What stings deepest isn't the luxury itself. It's the normalcy. These aren't delicacies for officers or SS elite. They're standard issue for every GI, truck drivers, cooks, riflemen barely out of high school. The Americans feed their boys like this while German civilians ration to the edge of starvation. The propaganda posters still scream about Fortress Europe and final victory, but the evidence is in their hands: tins of real food, coffee that wakes you properly, candy that doesn't taste like chemicals. Stahl finally speaks, voice low. "They don't fight hungry. That's the difference." The words hang. No one argues. A few men look away, toward the west where the American lines glow faintly with vehicle lights and cooking fires. Someone mutters, "If we had this, maybe we could hold." But the thought trails off. They know the truth, even with full bellies, the artillery, the Jabos, the endless Shermans would still come. Dawn fully breaks. Orders arrive, hold at all costs. The men pocket what rations they can carry, bury the empty tins deep so snipers won't spot the gleam. As they crawl back to their positions, the pilfered food sits heavy in their stomachs. Not just nourishment. A quiet poison. Every bite reminds them what the enemy has that they, and their families, do not. Desertion begins as a whisper. One man slips away at dusk. Then another. Small at first. But the seed is planted. And in the rear areas, where staff officers still dine on whatever makes it through the bombed rail lines, the stories filter back. Officers hear them too. The contrast spreads like damp rot through the Wehrmacht. The breaking point draws closer. October 1944. Twilight bleeds into the dense pine forests of the Hurtgenwald. Rain has turned the forest floor into black soup. A reinforced platoon from the 89th Infantry Division, Volksgrenadiers, many of them convalescents pulled from hospitals, crouches in shallow scrapes along a firebreak. They've held this line for 9 days against relentless American pressure. Ammunition is rationed to 10 rounds per man per day. Food has become rumor. The company commander, Hauptmann Friedrich Lange, 34, once a civil servant in Dresden, now limps from shrapnel in his thigh. He knows the men are at the edge. A runner returns from a night patrol carrying 2 soaked canvas bags. Inside, 11 complete C-ration cartons lifted from a destroyed American half-track 2 kilometers west. Lange nods once. No speeches. The men divide the hall in silence beneath dripping branches. They work quickly, hands shaking from cold and anticipation. Gefreiter Paul Kessler, 19, opens a can of veal loaf. The meat is firm, seasoned, slices cleanly with a bayonet. He eats standing, rain dripping from his helmet brim onto the tin. Another man finds the biscuits, 4 square crackers, crisp even after the soaking. They spread cheese from a foil packet, the sharp tang cutting through weeks of boiled potatoes and turnip greens. Someone discovers the powdered milk. Mixed with rainwater it becomes something almost creamy. They pass it around in mess tins. Cigarettes again. Camels this time. The first draw is long, deliberate. Smoke drifts upward, mingling with mist and the faint cordite stink that never leaves the trees. A boy, no older than 17, bites into a D-ration chocolate bar. His eyes widen. He chews slowly, as though afraid the taste will vanish. "It's real," he whispers. No one mocks him. The talk comes later, hushed under the constant patter of rain on ponchos. "My mother wrote before we moved up," Kessler says. "They're getting 800 grams of bread a week now. Half of it potato flour. No fat. The old people are dying quietly." Another soldier nods. "In Essen they're eating wallpaper paste. My sister said the glue tastes better than the soup." Langer listens, jaw tight. He remembers Dresden ration cards stamped with ever-decreasing allowances. Women trading wedding rings for a kilo of potatoes. Children foraging dandelions in bombed lots. Yet here, in American packs meant for frontline troops, abundance is routine. One man holds up 4 cigarettes per ration. Every day. And they still complain about the coffee being too weak. A bitter laugh ripples, then dies. The laughter is dangerous. It acknowledges the fracture. The Wehrmacht has always prided itself on iron discipline, on making do, on fighting harder because life is harder. But this food, this casual plenty, undermines the myth. If the enemy feeds its soldiers like this, what are we really fighting for? Survival? Honor? Or simply because we have no choice? Langer eats last. He opens a can of apricots. The fruit is soft, golden, syrup clinging to each slice. He lets one dissolve on his tongue. The sweetness is almost painful. He thinks of his wife in the ruins of their apartment, boiling nettles for tea. He pockets the empty tin. Evidence must not be left for the Amish to find. But the taste lingers. As night deepens, orders come down, hold until relieved. No one moves. They sit in the mud, ration tins hidden inside tunics, the pilfered abundance a secret weight. One soldier, a quiet farmer from Bavaria, slips away during the next artillery barrage. Then another. Small desertions at first. A man with a full stomach walks west, toward the lights, toward the smell of real coffee and hot chow. Word spreads through the company in fragments. Men compare notes in whispers. The contrast festers. Every pilfered ration becomes a quiet accusation. The propaganda still blares from distant loudspeakers: final victory, wonder weapons, unbreakable will. But the men now hold proof in their hands. The Americans do not starve. Their boys do not count calories. Their families do not queue for turnips. The forest holds its breath. Rain drums on helmets. Somewhere ahead, American artillery registers a new target. The line trembles. And in the rear, division staff begin to notice the missing men. The trickle becomes a stream. The poison has taken root.